Picture this. You're playing your main and you know you need to land a grab to get your biggest combo started on your opponent. You dash around a few times and suddenly you run in and commit to the grab. Unfortunately, your opponent jumped right over the grab attempt and you eat a hearty punish. What went wrong? How can you get better at finding the openings you want without putting yourself at risk? Hey everyone, this is Coach TurtleKing, and we're going to strengthen your neutral game by implementing the bait and punish tactic. By the end of the workout, you will be able to react to and punish your opponent's mistakes that you forced by pressuring them through your positioning. The first thing you should do is hop into training mode and pick your main. Play around with their moveset for 5 to 10 minutes and identify what their primary combo starters are. For example, Mario starters are low landing aerials or a grab. Falco is looking for an up tilt or a grab. Greninja wants a down tilt, a falling aerial, or dash attack depending on different percents. Once you've identified your main combo starters, spend 1 or 2 minutes warming up your basic combos. After that, identify your character's burst options. These are characterized by your fighter lunging forward and closing a gap very quickly with an attack. Many dash attacks serve this purpose, and some burst options can also start combos. Spend another minute moving around, and then quickly interrupting your movement with a burst option to hit the CPU or a combo starter. Now that you're warming up, I'm going to explain how you can land these attacks more consistently. Many players will see the reward they get off these options and get really antsy at the opportunity to land them, swinging anytime the opponent is in range to be hit by one. The range from which you're able to hit someone with an unreactable attack is called your burst range. Think about your burst range as the furthest distance with which you can let rip your farthest reaching attack without your opponent being able to react. Unfortunately, your opponent may know the burst range of your character as well, and they're doing the best they can to tread outside your burst range, or if they must enter your burst range because they don't have enough range to contest you, for example, a giant sword or projectile, they must remain unpredictable. This can make it dangerous to swing first, since your opponent may be waiting for you to make the first move so that they can punish the end lag of your attack with a starter of their own. Luckily for you, you can use this tactic on your opponents and come out on top, as long as you have more patience and careful movement. Here's how you do it. Hop into a game against a friend or stranger, and when the match starts, make sure not to take the first swing. Your goal here is to see your opponent making the first move, react and get out of the way, and then punish them using your own attack. This is the punish half of bait and punish. Your opponent makes a play on you, you're positioned safely enough to avoid it, and you retaliate with your own burst option or combo starter. This is also referred to as a whiff punish. For now, just try moving around safely into different positions and see where your opponent decides to swing on you. If you're positioned close enough, react with a burst option to whiff punish them. If your opponent whiffs, which means missing, something especially laggy, try to get more reward by whiff punishing with a combo starter. In the game you started, try to land at least 3 whiff punishes on your opponent. So now the question is, how do I get my opponent to swing on me even though they can clearly see that I'm positioned safely away from them? This is where the bait part comes in. Remember that talk about burst range? The first thing you want to do is envision the burst range of the enemy character. If you're unfamiliar with that character, just try to imagine how far their dash attack will reach, as that'll provide a decently good metric. Since your opponent is more likely to swing when you enter their threat range, start to move your fighter to the edge of their threat range. Now you can start provoking your opponent to commit to an attack by entering and exiting their range with tricky movement. Try not to be predictable with the timing of entering and exiting your opponent's burst range, so use jumps, safe aerials, and dashes to keep your opponent on your toes. When you see top players dashing around wildly near each other, this is what they're trying to do. They're attempting to safely provoke their opponent. For at least 3 games, practice positioning yourself at the edge of your opponent's threat range in neutral and only swing when your opponent makes a move at you first. This will condition you to get into a reactionary mindset and allow you to implement the bait and punish playstyle into your game plan. By entering your opponent's threat range, you will be able to bait forward a response, and by exiting that range safely, you can react to the response with a punish of your own. That completes both halves of the bait and punish. So what's better than entering your opponent's burst range? Having them enter your burst range at the same time. If your opponent is within your burst range, they will be under immediate threat. This places pressure on your opponent to pick an option. If you're fighting someone with a longer range than you, just entering your opponent's range may not be enough pressure, since your opponent can pick to do nothing instead of taking a risk on a bigger attack. But if your opponent is under threat of getting hit by an unreactable burst option from you, they will be forced to either exit your range and give up stage control, or commit to something more aggressive, which you could attempt to whiff punish as discussed earlier. If you fight someone with lower burst range than you have a big advantage since you can introduce your opponent to your threat range before you threaten yourself, allowing you to exert pressure from large distances and, depending on your character, get in hits with safe attacks. Try to consider the bait and punish playstyle as a tool. If you never swing first, your opponent will realize they never need to be threatened as you approach, and they can just close the distance against you until you're back into the corner. Mix in some sudden burst attacks so your opponent realizes they must respect your presence. And when you get your hits, make each one count through a big combo to make them respect you even more. The last thing to note is that faster characters can whiff punish from further, but slower characters tend to rely on the strategy more since they usually have more committal, slow attacks, meaning they hate to swing first since they're easy to punish. If a heavy's opponent was right in front of them though, they can punish extra hard. So the best way to internalize this tactic is to use it in real games. Pick your main and hop into 3 games against other players and try to provoke them to charge at you. Quickly move in and out of their burst range and be in position to retaliate if your opponent makes a move. If your opponent isn't taking the bait, that means you're not being threatening enough. Try to close the distance even further, or swing safely where you think they might end up, to make them feel more threatened by your presence. If your opponent is cornered, they're stuck within your threat range, so use this to really force your opponent to make a decision. So the next time you hop into a game against someone who isn't going to give you any openings, try to bait them to hand you one on a silver platter. I'm Coach TurtleKing, and I'll see you in the next guide. Peace!